there is an interesting conversation around intuition and anxiety, and not only just what they are and how people experience them, but also the intersections between them. And I wanted to talk about it a little bit. As a numerologist, I know that these themes show up in numbers, but I wanted to bring a little bit more light and attention into how that's happening. So, welcome to Numbers with Ace Jacari. I'm your host, Ace Jacari, but you already know, call me Ace. And in this episode, we're discussing the similarities between anxiety and intuition, but also how they show up into numerology as well as ascension symptoms. So, if you're liking what you're hearing, make sure you share it on your socials and tag me at Numbers with Ace Jacari on Instagram or TikTok. All the direct links are in the description of this episode. I do offer services, so if you're experiencing themes around anxiety or intuition or anything else that you want a little bit more guidance on, that is something that I offer in my services. But let's go ahead and get into this, because this is something that I really wanted to talk about, because there's a common misconception that 1, 2, and 7 are the only quote-unquote intuitive numbers. Now, the thing about intuition is everybody is going to experience it, because intuition, as it's in its definition, is the ability to understand something immediately without needing for conscious reasoning. So this is also being in tune with the energies that are surrounding you, be able to sense or know something without having logic to back it up. And everybody does that, whether you're consciously aware of it or not. You're able to, just sometimes intuitively know. And I think that there's this glamorization or this romanticization around intuition of it has to be a, oh my gosh, I know this is gonna happen, of some prophetic or profound type thing. And it doesn't always have to be very predictive. It doesn't always have to be in a dream. It might just simply be you are literally buttering your toast for breakfast and you're like, somebody's about to knock on my door. 3 seconds later, knock, 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 somebody's at your door. and you knew. And it's like, how did you know that? Intuition. And that's something beautiful about it. And it's also a level of knowing what is right and what is wrong. Now, it's not to say that 2 and 7 don't encompass intuition. They do. They most definitely do. But it's intuition in a specific way. I feel like 2 gets this intuitive rap because its ruler is the moon. And it's not to say, again, that it's not intuitive, but it's intuitive in regards to a per se emotions or feelings, but also other 2 themes like communication, community, connection, and safety and comfort and things along that sort. I would recommend checking out my Intro to Numerology guide to learn more about the number 2 as well as other numbers 0 through 9. But that's some of the things that 2 encapsulates. But then you also have 7 being regarded as the number of spirituality. And it's not to say that it's not, but in that spirituality, people bring intuition into the conversation. But it's this introspection, this desire for deeper knowledge and internal understanding, and sometimes personal understanding of understanding not only yourself, not only understanding information that you're taking in, but also understanding yourself. So it's important to understand how numbers work, because again, it's not that they're not intuitive, it's where they're intuitive and how their intuition shows up. And it can, like 7's intuition can show up in the regards to the fact that I know that there's more information out there. I know there is. I know there's more for me to understand. I also know that I do not know everything. So what else is there for me to know? And 2, it can be over here like, okay, I know I feel this. I sense this. I can see this in the people who I care about. I can sense this in the people who I care about or who are in my community or who I'm connected to. So it can show up like that. And that's very interesting to see. And one of the things about intuition is how it might show up in your body. So you might feel a lightness or an airiness or even a tightness in your body, or a pressure in your head or your neck or the rest of your body, a lightheadedness or even an uncertainty and overwhelm in regards to what you know. Somebody's about to knock on your door, you're about to get a phone call, and you're like, how did I know that? Sometimes there's beauty in a little bit of mystery. Sometimes it's cute to not know exactly how you know, but just know that you know. And eventually the answers are likely to present, or I won't say likely because I don't want to give you no false hope, but I will say that maybe one day the answers might present themselves. Now, we've talked about intuition, but let's talk about anxiety a little bit. Now, the definition of anxiety is intense, excessive, or persistent worry and fear about everyday situations. And I feel like as a generation over like the past 10 years, on a global scale, anxiety has just gotten so much worse and so much more intense. And now sitting in this 2024 energy, that also brings themes around anxiety into the mix, because we have 4 in there, and 4 is connected to anxiety, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But anxiety in and of itself can be very overwhelming to experience and literally stop and really negatively impact your day-to-day life, because you're in a constant state of worry and overwhelm and uncertainty. And that can really stop you from moving in any direction when it becomes so difficult. This can make you feel like your heart is racing, or your breathing is really quick, or very short breaths, and you're sweating and you're feeling tired or even nauseous, or there's intrusive thoughts and excessive worry and so on and so forth. Anxiety can be really, really bad. And when we talk about this intersection between anxiety and intuition, anxiety is this excessive fear, this excessive nervousness, this I don't know. And to some extent, among other things, because I feel like anxiety is a very personal experience, and I feel like there's more variance of it now. I don't feel like anxiety is what it used to be. I feel like it got a little bit more kick to it nowadays. And with that being the case, it's just like when we're talking about intuition and anxiety, this reminds me of the quote, anxiety yells, intuition whispers. And that can be somewhat calming when you're able to really process it, but also still anxiety inducing when you think about it. Because when you're so used to anxiety being so loud, it can sometimes feel like you can't hear that intuition or feel connected to the intuition. And it's sad. It's a little bit heartbreaking to recognize the fact that you might not necessarily be able to recognize you're connected to your intuition as deeply as you are, because anxiety is so bad. And this is, I feel like, is very highlighted because of the similarities between the two. They're both very nervous system dominant. I will say that intuition can also be very much connected to outside energies, because there's a level of interconnection between all energy. So there's that awareness, but also that physical embodiment of the anxiety in that nervous system. And your nervous system is made up of the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves, and it controls much of what you think, you feel, and what your body does. So it allows you to, walk and to speak and to swallow and breathe and learn and even comprehend things. But it also controls how your body reacts in emergency. So anxiety, in the way that I've experienced it myself, has just been a very constant state of flight. Flight and fright. Flight and fright, and we's not trying to stay here. No, I don't like it. Get me out. And in that personal experience, it made it really hard for me to understand intuition and understand and even feel connected to my intuition. But now, present day, being able to look at so many times my intuition was able to help me, because sometimes that intuition, like I said earlier, was the knowing of something right or something wrong. So sometimes that intuition is a warning, and that intuition feels like anxiety. And as somebody who has experienced anxiety for years, is the learning how to tell the difference. So you might be like, okay, well, how can I tell the difference? It takes time. I'm gonna be so honest with you. It takes time to understand your personal anxiety and also your personal experience with intuition as well. Now, this is something that you can get a little bit more clarity on via numerology with somebody who does understand numbers very in depth. But this is also something that you might want to just discover on your own. Now, you might be questioning, how could I tell this per se on a numerological side? I created a technique, actually, that helps you see and understand numbers more clearly. So I am a wholehearted believer that the best spiritual practitioner for you is always going to be you, because nobody's living your life. Nobody's experiencing the way you experience the world. Nobody's feeling the things that you're feeling, the moment that you're feeling them, the way that you're feeling them, how you're feeling them, how you're understanding what feeling it even is. So me as a spiritual practitioner, I'm only here as a guide. You might not need me forever, and that is completely okay. But it's also very beneficial sometimes to have somebody to be that guide. And if you feel like you need that guide, baby, come this way. come over here. Come sit down. Get you some tea. Get you a blanket. Snuggle up. Talk about it. And maybe not even talk about it. Let me talk to you about it. Let me tell you what I see already. Because sometimes it's beneficial to see somebody and interact with somebody who already knows to some extent and already understands to some extent. Because when experiencing this anxiety and intuition relationship, sometimes it might be as simple as ascension symptoms. And that comes with both of them. If you feel a stronger intuition, but you also feel a stronger sense of anxiety. And I know for me, anxiety has always been a very dominant ascension symptom. And one of the things that helped me process that uncertainty and that anxiety was the fact that of recognizing the death of sorts that was occurring, of the parts of me that just couldn't come with me to the direction that I was going. And that's not to say that I don't need those, that those parts don't mean anything for me, or they didn't help me get to where I was, or that I have to never speak of them again. It just means that they're not the ones that need to be driving the boat no longer. That it can be as simple as that I have gotten to a spot where this thing that has gotten me this far doesn't need to help me anymore, because there's other things that I've created and cultivated for myself that are better suited for this role. It can be as simple as that. So some ascension symptoms, we got a long list here. A long list can be headaches, a lack or increase of appetite, some weird dreams or even insomnia, sleeping more, sleeping less, inconsistent sleep, night sweats or night chills, a higher need for hydration, intense energy, and a level of disorientation, unusual aches and pains, memory loss, seeing and hearing things, loss of identity, feeling out of body, fatigue, like you're also at the same time feeling like you're rebooting, like you just gotta lay down and be like, nope, can't do anything. Sudden changes, that can be things around losing friends or interest in certain things that you like, new opportunities just presenting themselves out of nowhere, a level of mood swings, mental health impacts, anxiety, like I said earlier, depression, feeling triggered, feeling overwhelmed, feeling uncertain, and so many other things that I didn't even list, because ascension is custom to everybody. Like I said before, not everybody is going to have the experience exactly how you're experiencing it. So with you experiencing the things that you're experiencing, the way that you're experiencing them, it's beneficial for you to understand yourself. So this then brings up shadow work. This brings up therapies of sorts, because it doesn't always have to be talk therapy. Therapy can be so much more than just sitting down and talking to somebody about what you're going through. Because therapy can be custom to you. Your form of therapy might be working out. Your form of therapy might be meditating or taking a nap. Sometimes that helps you process is that sleep. Of you might have a clearer state of mind in a dream state or in a subconscious state. Meditation can help. Drinking water or even changing your environment helps you get a new perspective and helps you process the information clearer. Therapy isn't going to always look like the same thing for everybody. It's beneficial sometimes to talk about it, but also knowing how to move your energy to understand where the trauma might get locked up. Because I've said before, but I don't know how recently I've said it, but I've said for years at this point that your power lies within your hips. And I might go more in depth into that at a later date, but with your power lying within your hips, and that also being literally the center of your body. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror or even looking at a body, head to toe, the center of the body is around the hips. That being the case, when something not so pleasant happens, with that being the power source, those hips are taking a direct hit. So you might also have a lot of tightness in your hip, which will also can impact circulation in the legs, back pain, neck pain, and with it starting in the hips, it just branches out both ways. So if you're feeling like you're not feeling the greatest, maybe it's time to stretch your hips out. But I do have a couple more things I want to talk about in regards to anxiety and intuition, because I did mention the number 4 and its connection to both of those themes. So 4 is ruled by Uranus, Rahu, also known as the North Node, in Western terms, Saturn, and also Mercury. Now, this is a very broad and robust energy. It's very big, very intense. So it highlights not only those, it has those rulers, but it highlights a spiritually guided higher power, but also a level of downloads, maybe channeled messages, clear cognizance as well is in there. And this is because not only Uranus is connected to themes like evolution, progression, enlightenment, intuition, and technology, but it also has a level of recklessness and unpredictability, reactivity, anxiety, and isolation. But then you also have Rahu bringing in the future, where you're headed, a point of increase, a psychological shift, material desires, but also manipulation, deceit, fears, again anxiety, and again restlessness. And then we also have Saturn bringing in structure, ambition, discipline, responsibility, and boundaries, but also have restriction, doubts, delays, depression, and loneliness. But then also Mercury bringing in the mind, intellect, expression, curiosity, and perception, but also destruction, nervousness, irritability, social anxiety, and indecisiveness. This is a lot. And it's all encapsulated in a single number. So this can put people who are ruled by this number, if you checked out my number 4 episode, in a position where they're constantly feeling anxious, or have a very strong or tethered relationship to anxiety or intuition. But it also puts everybody who's experiencing the number 4 in these themes of you can resonate with this to some extent, even if you don't have that psychic number. Now, I really do love the number 4 because it does have that very vivid duality that you can always see when you look at it. You can't deny it. It's very much there. Once you become aware of it, it's there. It's there. And when you take into account that it's spiritually guided, it really reminds you to also embrace a level of patience, because with Saturn's rulership in there, you have a relationship with time. So sometimes the intuition, or rather the anxiety, can feel so overwhelming in the moment. But 5 minutes ago, you were fine. So just like 5 minutes ago, you were fine, this anxiety may not last forever. And that reminding of, and really trying to be louder than the anxiety, and setting yourself up with an anxiety plan, that can be very beneficial. Okay, I feel anxious, what can I do? 3 to 5 things that you can do when you're at home by yourself. 3 to 5 things you can do when you're out with somebody, or you're even just with somebody. 3 to 5 things that you can do when you are outside by yourself. And 3 to 5 things you can do in other scenarios that I haven't listed. Having a plan for these things can be very beneficial, because as much as 4 is very disruptive and can be very chaotic, plans still do come into play for the number 4 because of that Saturn rulership. So when you're able to take into account, this is the experience that I already have, how can I best prepare myself for this experience? But also being able to work through that anxiety of being like, okay, well, what is this? Where could this be stemming from? What are the anxious thoughts around? Where am I? What am I doing? What are the triggers for the anxiety? Does my anxiety come with auras of a sense of, okay, yep, it's coming? What is that? And that could also be intuition in its own way, of that aura of like, oh, yep, anxiety's about to spike. But your journey is very customary to you. So I do recommend you working with somebody who you resonate with to help you become whoever it is, whatever it is you're trying to become. Because you deserve that, and because you are seeing whatever you see for yourself, or feel, or even have the desire to become whatever you want to become. It already happened. It already became. You already did the thing. Now all it is the journey of realizing that you've done it, and also seeing it come into fruition. And if that somebody is me who you want to help on that journey, slide my way. All the links are below so we can tap in. But thank you so much for listening. Share this with somebody who is experiencing levels of anxiety, or experiencing intuition, which could literally be anybody, or even interested in those themes. And also maybe even has a dominantly placed 2 or 7 or 4 in their numbers, or anything like that. But thanks for listening again. I know I already said it once, but I really appreciate you sticking around. And make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram at Numbers with Jacari, and I will catch you in the next one. Rest easy, get you some tea, drink your water. Peace.